In a society where people are punished for artificial crimes, where unofficial red lines are designed to confine those considered slime. Through the eyes of the swine, racial profile is the sign of the
talk show host and political commentator Tavis Smiley visited the Rochester area for a speaking engagement at RIT. Later that day, Mr. Smiley moderated a pair of panels at a community forum held at East High School. The topic of discussion, racism in the city of Rochester.
Now it's my chance to listen and to learn about this grand community and how it can become, even now, a beacon of light and hope for the rest of the country struggling with the issues of racism and poverty, even 50 years later. I want to start...
Each panel consisted of two different generations of leadership, the elderly and the young. The first comprised of honorable community members who experienced the rebellion of July 64 here in Rochester, New York, where the primary cause for the uprising was the discontent of inequity in education, employment, healthcare, and housing.
50 years ago, 60 years ago, there was, and especially in the 50s, there was a 300% increase in the black population in the town of Rochester in over about a 10-year period. 300%. Imagine if there's a 300% increase in the population of this auditorium in the next half an hour, right? You can understand what's going to happen in terms of challenges for goods and services and space, and some people may not be healthy, and all of the problems that attend to that. And there was a great need. Minister Florence says it the best, and I will never forget this. In the 60s, the problem was health, education, and jobs. At the infancy of the 21st century, the problem is health, education, and jobs.
There's a difference in a riot and a rebellion. The rebellion took place because of the oppression that was exhibited in this community.
You talk about the haves and the have-nots. This is a vivid example. If you just took Rochester and begin to look at the people that live here and dwell here, and begin to talk about those that have and those that do not have. And the majority of the people just do not have. And I see it more and more each and every day.
Tavis Smiley was not at a loss of words in expressing his concerns about the climate in the condition of having two Rochesters, the have and the have-nots. He posed a crucial question to Rochester's new and upcoming leadership.
Disabuse me of the notion, given the data that I've been reading about Rochester, that Rochester is not in danger unless something dramatic happens. That Rochester is not in danger of becoming a Detroit.
I think that's the question of this part of the century. And we're not the only city, but we're one of the key cities. And there's a tipping point that cities can reach where a number of your variables are at such a point that you can't pull back anymore. And there are people who are arguing that a lot of the characteristics, the data points we have here, mean we've already started falling off the cliff. I think that our history as a place with deeply embedded in social justice is the one thing that's going to cause many of us to say, we're not going over the edge of the cliff. I don't care what it takes. We're not going to allow ourselves to become a Detroit. And I don't believe that just because statistics are pushing us in a direction, that we can't have self-determination and move these issues forward in a very real and very significant way in this region. We have to.
I had the opportunity to interview some of the panelists, including Rochester's newly elected mayor, first woman mayor, who happens to be African American. This is what they had to say.
We cannot be remiss that we live in a capitalistic society. And as Tavis made reference, he said America was a corporation before it was a country. Until we had equitable participation in economic development and workforce development, we will always deal with this issue of poverty. And poverty, as you know, is the crux for some of the healthcare challenges and the housing challenges that we face as a community. So I think the one critical piece that we need to address is economics.
those issues that were happening then in the 1950s and 60s are still relevant today when it comes to race, sexism, gender, all of those discriminations. But we think it's different, or we have this concept and we're being told it's different because there was legislation passed, but this legislation is not being upheld. And that's what needs to happen. It's our job to tell our leaders and our fellow community members to uphold and make sure that this legislature is passed is actually working. And that needs to happen not through a riot, not through a rebellion, but a revolution. And we have the manpower, the technology, and the age, and the need and desperation to do so.
Because I believe with the young people in this city that care, and the senior people out here who still care and want to be involved, and the heart that this city has for giving, that we will make sure that we leave a legacy for our children that was better than us, that we have for ourselves.
I'm very hopeful in that she'll be able to bring people together to actually deal with the problem. She is not a person who sits back and says, I can do it or I'm going to do it. She's also not a person who says it's your fault. She's a person who says, let's come to reason together, and I think that's a very important piece.
I think that when they talk about the social issues that are happening here, the fact that we're fifth in the nation for childhood poverty and the high unemployment, those issues are not issues that you can ignore any longer. But when you look at the city of Detroit and the years of mismanagement and corruption and other things like that, we are completely different in that aspect. But I believe that we are resilient. We are a community that is looking towards the future and waiting to take that, take hold of our future, and we're going to do that in the coming months.
What will it take to eradicate the structural racism, not only in Rochester, but across our entire nation? We need strong voices who are passionate, because racism exists in multiple forms, making it the deadliest social cancer the world has ever endured. We need voices from all ethnic groups and nationalities fighting against the systemic disease, and simultaneously fighting for equity across the social strata. There is only one race on this planet, and that is the human race. I am Amen Ptah, and this is Our Truth TV.
I've said this countless times in the community that I truthfully believe that there's a cultural genocide, and black men obviously serve at the crux of it. My education didn't come by way of the traditional school setting. I actually was born and raised in what's considered the Crescent here in Rochester.
1% of the people can't continue to own and control 42% of the wealth.
But what we have to come to terms with is the built-in structural inequity that makes this system go. We have to deal with that. And until we deal with that, we're never going to fix the problem. Here's the manifestation of that. We have to look at Monroe County and Rochester now. We can't just separate Rochester from Monroe County, because Monroe County is wealthy. Monroe County is wealthy, and you have within a 10-minute drive, you have the #1 performing school district in New York State.
We've done enough talking. We've done enough studies. It's time to bring people to the table of action, with everybody asking themselves, as I look around me in the sphere that I control, what am I doing? What can I do to make this thing happen?
Our military unit used to say when they had a mission, ain't nothing to it but to do it.